Let's talk about City System by Jeff Grubb with Ed Greenwood for Forgotten Realms, first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. This is for use with the Forgotten Realms fantasy world. It does say on various points, you can use this with whatever fantasy world or whatever, and there are some things that are definitely quite useful. This is specifically, it says it's called City System. Well, this is about all cities, is it? Well, no, it's about Waterdeep. It's a detailed look at some aspects of Waterdeep. And it goes well with FR1 Waterdeep in the North, which I reviewed last month. That's the main city. And this is not, it's kind of standalone, and I think it's worth looking at even if you don't have FR1. But it's plenty made to really supplement FR1. And that kind of makes it a complex product to review in some ways, because should I really review it as part of FR1 or as an add-on to that system or not? It's interesting. One complexity is it's the bigger product. It is a box set. FR1 is a folio. This is also, the actual book here is 32 pages. There is a book, no new art basically. Mostly what this is, apart from an advert for DC's Dungeons and Dragons comics, in 1989, is this wad of paper, which is maps. And I think you could argue the main attraction is the maps. Actually, both parts are worthwhile, even if you're not running Waterdeep or the Realms. What I guess I could say is, if you're running Waterdeep in the Realms, then this is such a good product that there's no, it's an automatic recommend. But for anyone else, it's going to be worthwhile going through it a bit more. So apart from the 32-page book, there is a slightly odd perspective art map, full art, going up to Mount Waterdeep, and with a perspective kind of lateral south to north across the city, I think. There is a map of Castle Waterdeep, which has, it's sort of set out like this. It has, you see, there's a sort of, top-down general map, and then there's isometric maps of the castle going up to the highest tower with a kind of comparison to what the actual castle looks like. It's not quite visible across because I'm not putting this out completely, but this tracks and turns into the upper levels there. So you have this kind of full map of a castle. That's useful already. But the maps, there are then 10 maps which go together in a part work. You lay out, I think, as in it's 5 by 2. And I'll get one of the most useful ones. Basically, each of them follows a similar system, that it has the map of the area that is, for that section. Then it has some either specific or sample buildings. So map 3 of 10, which has Algeron's Tower, Piedron's Palace, the Griffin's Stable, the Street of Silver, Warrior's Way, quite important area there. That's the map. It's got some sea caves on the other side. You see, the style is not record-breaking. I think this is, again, is this Court Graphics, it's Dennis Court, and Fry Graphics. So Dennis Court had also done art on the Forgotten Realms box set, including some cartography, I think. So yeah, this map here, which is using some early graphic software amongst other stuff, is perfectly usable. It's not beautiful, but it's usable, not offensive. And then it has a variety of maps. You see that this one has quite a few different maps at 5-foot scale squares, and you've got the Palace Warehouse, building 17, main floor and upper floor. The Map House, building 15, main floor, upper floor. Dragon's Head Tavern, main floor, building 20, main floor, upper floor, etc. Generic Barracks, which actually maps to several locations. Building 7, which is all over the map. There are several building 7s, is a barracks. So, obviously you're using it when you're looking at the map and saying they're going to an important location. You can check the map. There is, if you're thinking about using these in strict analog, there's obviously a difficulty that you're talking about a pretty big set of maps that you're just not going to have out. This is not really a criticism for me, but I think it's worth saying that, of course, that is a logistical problem. You're talking about, 10 maps this size. Now, it could be quite fun to create a version of the city map for your players using this at that scale, but that's an awful lot of work. Now, electronically, it's actually different, I think. You can get away with doing something quite different electronically, and you can access the maps and you can copy out sections and stuff like that, quite easily from PDFs. I like having the physical copies, but I think, worth saying, it's hard to imagine using it at the table as if you're just laying the map out. You've got your massive map table and then the players are at a different table maybe. But what you can see is, yes, you refer to stuff, you kind of get an idea of what's where. You quickly, when you refer to, one of a higher level map, as particularly the one in FR1, and you go like, okay, well, where are they going? You look at these maps, and you get the building plans where you need them. But the building plans are also useful, of course, just as building plans. You could use them in any game. You want a mansion for a powerful moneylender, well, you've got Mertz Mansion there. You have, you've got water fortresses on a water gate there. There's a lot of stuff there, lots of options, lots of buildings, which are not just for Waterdeep, because most of these maps are very generic. They are just, here's a wall fort, here's an inn, here is a house of ill repute, here is a temple, there's a temple, a couple of floors of a temple, and here is a shipwrights. So you've got generic, essentially it in that sense should remind us of, in recent discussions on this channel, the Lankmar city supplement that I reviewed, City of Adventure, which has generic buildings as well as the generic geomorphs, which is great. I do recommend that. But for city play, having lots of generic building plans rather than having to draw them yourself is great. Having it connect to a particular city that you can use, that's also great. This is not as generic as the Lankmar stuff, a lot of which you can use anywhere, but the building plans you can use anywhere. The other thing is the book. The fact that it's Grubb with Greenwood is pertinent. In my discussions about FR1 and FR0, the campaign box set, I made the point that Greenwood was really the leader on these. And you can tell for various reasons, just if you know Greenwood's writing style, the weird selection of material, the fact that a sixth of the whole of the campaign box set is books from the Forgotten Realms. And that is actually kind of interesting, though vastly overwritten. But, with spells, homunculus creation things, magical ointment recipes, things like that. But you can tell that's just stuff he's had that was available. Jeff Grubb didn't write that, and he wouldn't have chosen it. You can see that how they've come together. These are Ed Greenwood's notes on these things. Here, the swap in their names, Grubb with Greenwood, is informative. In that, I think that the map is ultimately Greenwood's, as in it's based on Greenwood's. The timeline, the short timeline of Waterdeep's history, the rulership, laws and peacekeeping section, and the code legal. This is what's basically all the stuff at the start. The first 9 pages is mostly, a lot of it actually mirrors stuff in FR1. The code legal does, for instance. It's a holdover from that. But the first 9 pages or something are basically Greenwood's, a short summary of stuff in FR1. It is GM, where it is straight text, it's triple column. Where it switches to tables, which it does for most of it, it goes to double column. It's this kind of size. There is no bonus art, basically, there, apart from that decent cover, which is, it should be said, Larry Elmore. It is not my favourite Elmore piece. I quite like his more heroic style pieces, but it's a nice enough Larry Elmore. The buildings of Waterdeep, so the other sections are the buildings of Waterdeep, services, street scenes, recurrent situations, and picking pockets, short and long versions. So the buildings is one, you've got a long list, kind of a micro key, both by number and by type of service of 280 buildings, some of which are generic, 282 buildings, some of which, the barracks and a few others, are generic and duplicated. And it gives a 2 or 3 word description: rental villa, fest hall, temple of Saluni, noble family villa, so that you can very quickly know what they are. And now, of course, FR1 is helpful there as well. There are also, and this is partly, these are slightly expanded, it does say so, expanded version of tables in FR1 Waterdeep in the north to generate what is in a building. So Class A buildings are unique, Piedron's Palace, etc. The others, B, C and D, you check, you roll random, you can decide it, or when they go into a building, or you can roll to find out whether it's a row building, a lesser building, or a grand house. And then you randomly determine, based on the type of building it is, the number of stories or basements, etc. it has, and then the condition, and then the function, and that is a D10 result. And this gives you stuff like, it could be a warehouse or rooming house or apartment block for a Class C, or some other stuff. None of this is very exciting, but it does let you quickly generate stuff, and it is, as I say, parallel to Langmar City Adventures building floor plans. This is more flexible, but obviously gives you less concrete detail up front. The list of buildings by service is, so by warehouses, by inns, stables, private homes, rental villas, shops, fences, and temples and shrines. That's useful. It gives you a reference point, an index essentially to turn when players ask stuff. And you can also refer to FR1 from that. I don't think there is this same listing in FR1. I literally spoke about it a month ago. I would have said so there if it was. Whoops. So that's useful for Waterdeep. The particular table generating buildings is okay, you could use it elsewhere, but it's less exciting. Now I think we get to what I think is really the meat of this book in terms of what's most valuable, both specifically and generically, especially if you already have FR1. This isn't there at all. This is street scenes. And basically, this is slightly badly organised in that street scenes comes before the encounter tables, strictly speaking. The encounter tables being at the end of the street scene section. And the reason this is annoying is because there is a point made that the street scenes are meant to be, you're always generating street scenes if you want to. At least you do not have to. It says, you might just want to kind of ignore this as they're doing if there's no encounter, but you may also want to have it in case you want something where players are saying, I want to accomplish something, and you're like, well, who else is around at the time? But it is confusing that it says this, but then that core mechanism of early D&D, of the continual random encounter risk, which is a time cost, basically. Instead, that is second, and it says, these only happen if you roll them, whereas the street scenes are always going. What does it particularly say that? Differ from the street scenes in a number of ways. First, the street scenes are window dressing, which the characters can interact with but are not required to respond to. Two merchants arguing in the street is a slice of urbanised life, but not something they'll bring the characters directly into conflict unless they so choose it. So to look at the, at the encounters first, it essentially gives you a likelihood, 1 in 20 per hour in the streets daytime, 1 in 10 per hour in the streets nighttime. And then it gives you a D8 plus D12 table, and so from 2 to 20. And it gives you, friendly drunks, unfriendly thieves, unfriendly drunks, monster encounter, city watch. And then monster encounter gives you a further D8 plus D12, which is unfriendly fighters, werewolves, ghouls led by a ghast, mongrel men, vampires. It does also give some general comments on encounter frequency by common, uncommon, rare, and very rare. This doesn't, given that the encounter tables already exist, and there are some, it's saying, this is somewhat meant to explain the maths involved in creating the encounter table to let you replace it, but it's sort of just there. But you can see here, in terms of what I was saying about Grubb and Greenwood, this is presumably Grubb stuff, I think. He does do this elsewhere, he does create encounter tables and mechanics elsewhere. He's mechanically quite robust and serious in Spelljammer and Al-Qadim, so he thinks that way. He's very underrated because he didn't do anything superlative really, and he didn't write top tier adventures basically. I think the way in which he obviously attempted to make actual AD&D material is underrated. But yeah, the encounter tables are usable. There is some advice on how to kind of alter it. I think, just to get going with, it's going to be fine. It's ironically possibly, it clashes, as I say, how it integrates with the more interesting city scene section and how it clashes is interesting to me. I don't kind of fully have it articulated, but aside from the organisation, you should have your procedure first of every hour on the streets they're checking. You may want to roll up a wider scene as well. That's really the way it should be organised. But I think it's revealing that the street scenes is put first. You roll a 4-sided die for the number of entries. You then add or take away based on time and season and occasion and location. There's more in the dock wards. There are fewer events in the City of the Dead. You add plus 20 to the D100s you subsequently roll. So you might have 3 entries. You roll 3 D100s and add 20 to each of them if it's a night. Or rather, you roll 1 D100, add 20, and then select that and the following 2 encounters. That's how it works. And I've used this specifically in Waterdeep. I haven't used it elsewhere, but I could. You could fairly easily either rip this directly for any similar fantasy city, or you can just kind of select bits of it. Certainly as an inspiration for your own version, it's very easy to substitute your own ideas. But there are actually 120 entries per district of the 7 wards. Many replicate across the wards. The City of the Dead, which is the cemetery garden district, is not so much. That is just very much unique. Many of the others have some similar things going on, but that's okay. They're slightly different depending on the ward. There are more workers, more foreigners, more wagoners in the South Ward than in the Castle Ward or the Sea Ward, for instance. But it could be in the Sea Ward, you could have a young nobleman, you could have 2-3 gladiators in demonstration, you could have a crier in noble livery, you could have a religious speaker with a crowd, small children playing with dogs. And just to say, let's say you rolled 37 and you had 3 encounters. 37, runner in the livery of a noble house. 38, minor official of Waterdeep, scribe or clerk. 39, non-human merchant, dwarf, elf, halfling, gnome. So here you've got to think, well, who's the runner going to? Is he connected to the people in the thing? If this is the background to something the characters are attempting to do, are any of these people likely to create a problem for them? This could be the thief just wants to pickpocket someone, and in which case, well, there's a minor official of Waterdeep. He might be a good target, or the merchant. On the other hand, 74, City Watch, patrol of 4, obvious tourists from the hinterlands, and innocent bystanders. Innocent bystanders and concerned citizens are defined later as having different reactions to fights and disasters. On the other hand, let's say at night you roll 118, so you roll 98 plus 20, and it's 3 encounters. Courting lovers, drunken foreigner, and monster encounter. So you can have encounters sprung on you, specifically in that case that you luck out and get a range of results, including 120. There's some other stuff like 100 is often a flying creature, for instance, a hippogriff or something flying around. There's a chance of more annoying people during the day. Bands of ruffians, particularly, is an obvious one that crops up regularly. And I think thieves as well, possibly a fairly common. Merchants arguing. So there are a beggar who has a 20% chance of being a leveled thief essentially in disguise. So you have many encounters there that you could use, and this is kind of what I mean about the clashes, that you have an entire really wonderful way of peopling the streets and creating encounters organically, but you're also told to instead use this other system, and the street scene stuff is just background dressing. I do a mixture of both. I don't just use street scenes. I do encounters and then also roll. But yeah, there are notes on what, for instance, city guard patrols, what kind of levels they have, who dung sweepers are, what trotting chairs are. As I say, you then have the encounters, and is there a, yeah, obviously the monster encounter under here leads, so under street scenes leads to the monster encounter table under the creating stats and backgrounds for scenic characters section, which is confusingly also where random encounters is located. You then have 6 recurrent situations. This is a really good little thing, some of which could be stolen from another city, certainly. The weird thing here is that this is a mixture of, they're essentially meant to be kind of people who the PCs see a lot and who give flavour and depth to the city and give them connections. They are, sample NPCs, essentially, who you can have interact with your players. A street vendor, Seamot Dibbler, say, who becomes their friend and sells stuff to them and gives them gossip. A priest who's trying to start a new cult. An official who somehow gets away with having a weird, ridiculous non-job. No one really knows why. Drunken giants who are a hill giant emissary is, who's more sensible is here. His guards are getting into trouble on the streets, but you could befriend them and then hang out with them for the couple of months they're around. You could go on a quest based on a guy called Janzibar recruits them to join his quest, and so they go with him out into the cold lands. Or the dancing bear, it's a ranger whose ally, werebear, pretends to be a dancing bear so they can spy. They're all good. One of them is actively quest-like. The others could be. That's useful. Much like how FR1 has a bunch of good NPCs, I said FR0 is less useful for that, but FR1 has loads of interactive NPCs. These are just 6 sample situations which are free. You can just use them. They're there. The final thing is a slightly odd thing. It's loads of tables. Again, the recurrent situations feels like it could be more Greenwoodian. However, at the same time, you think, well, it could be the kind of thing that just Grubb, having worked on FR1, came up with a few of these and said, Ed, what do you think? Do these sound Realms-ish enough? But the short version, so there's a short version of picking pockets. What happens when someone randomly, you find a dead body or you're trying to rob someone? What do they have? And they have 1d6 items from the table below, and you take that away or you add to it depending on the wealth of the area. Most of them are going to be common items: tobacco and pipe, soft cap or hat, pieces of chalk, 1d4 darts, so that's useful. It could be valuable items, which is, money, a small non-magical book, valuable message, or there's a 5% chance of an item being special, which is something you have to decide. There's no table for that. Picking pockets, the long version, actually says this isn't really for when they find a random corpse or rob a random person, but instead is someone you've created that they're interacting with, or a dead body, and you decide what their occupation is. And then there are master tables which tell you, based on occupation, which tables to look at and to roll on. Everyday garments, fine garments. And fine garments has many subtables, 6 subtables: female headgear, female garb, male footgear, etc. 7 subtables, in fact. Possible fabrics for fine garment if you want to generate what fabric they have. And there's a special wealth list. There's a miscellaneous list, which is anything from, keys, spell scroll, doll or toy, drum, and goods, stuff that might be more valuable, and weaponry. So yeah, it's that's just a lot of that. I'd say the simple pickpocket table, ironically, is maybe more useful because you can just roll it then. The other one is a way of creating a random set of possessions for someone beforehand, because it's complex, and that's why it says no, you need to do this beforehand, and is maybe therefore less useful. So this is a weird one because it is a supplement to another book, really. However, it stands alone well enough as if you don't need to know anything about Waterdeep, but you either want to steal the city to put in your own world or in your own realms that has very little detail from the other stuff. Just, oh, I'm in the realms and this is the city of Waterdeep, and here's some characters I don't know much about. Which is fine, by the way. Obviously, people should do that if they want to, but it works for that. Or you can rob loads of stuff from this, particularly generic floor plans, the street scene tables, either as they are or rewritten for a particular city. The method is good. The simple pickpocket version. There's just a lot of fun things here which indicate a genuine sense of how to run a city and the importance of creating a liveliness in the city. And I've used different city supplements for different cities based on what I've been able to find, where I'm like, oh, what are people written for this place? And City System as a Nocturnal Table by Gabor Lux is generic and I use as well. Lankmar City of Adventure I do use freely, but for a specific city, this is one of the best, along with Lankmar City of Adventure. And I think you can take a lot, put it into the gumbo with Nocturnal Table, with Lankmar City of Adventure, and you've got lots of material to use for your own city, for your own fantasy city. It's also a reminder of Jeff Grubb's, his ability to just make mechanics that work. This is better than lots. TSR in the late 80s is actually a very weak place, late 80s to early 90s. The real dark days are then, not later. And Jeff Grubb is often connected, as is Greenwood. Controversial as this may be as a claim, they're often connected to some of the better products. This is a genuine recommendation for most people involved in running city adventures for AD&D. If you've used it or run it, tell me what you think in the comments, and recommend other city products as well. And I'll see you next time.